Hi, everybody. I'm Candid, Stanisci of CFL Talk. Why are you yelling? I don't know. It's Valentine's Day or something. No, it's Halloween. Welcome to this. I'm doing it again. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download the app, make sure you rate, leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also all smart TVs 2016 forward. And of course, if you don't mind, subscribe to Candid Stanisci 1030 on YouTube. And of course, we're here to talk about the Canadian Football League. And we're here with sports, and that's David Morassutti. He'll be going to the Grey Cup, and he will be feted by the Canadian Football League to make sure that he throws some sunshine on the Canadian Football League. Well, all I can say is irony of irony. While we were getting ready to go on here, I just realized something, David.
What is this?
It's the two games that are being played this weekend. They're rematches from last week.
Yeah. Previewing the playoffs with two games that could look nothing like playoff games.
And there were two games that were going, I'm not going to show you what I'm going to do next week. I'm not going to show you what I do next week. Nope, you don't get to see it. I'm holding it close to my chest. In fact, I'm probably not even going to look at my hand.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what's the point in really doing that, right?
Well, it's going to be interesting. So really, I guess what we've drawn a conclusion that essentially there's nothing to talk about last week. Nothing's relevant. I mean, the Argos did something spectacular. They finished 16-2, only the second team in CFL history to do that. By the way, that team did not make it past round.
Brian did what he had told me during practice. Nobody remembers the New England Patriots going 16-0 in the regular season. They remember them losing to the Giants in the Super Bowl. So the Argos are fully aware that the then Edmonton Eskimos finished with a 16-2 record, only to never even reaching the Grey Cup.
Yeah, that is a terrible way to go. I'm going to clean my glasses because they're a mess.
Can't see that way.
This is me doing an imitation of the teams getting ready for the playoffs. Got to make sure everything is perfect. And I got to tell you, this playoff season is going to be probably one of the most interesting playoffs in recent memory in the Canadian Football League. There are ironies everywhere, right? Calgary sneaking into the playoffs after a couple of seasons of dominating the Canadian Football League and losing Grey Cups to both Ottawa and Toronto under the circumstances that they find themselves in.
Yeah. No, I mean that's true. Like this has been, I was talking to somebody I know out in Calgary, and it's like uncharted territory. This is not a fan base that's used to its team having a losing record in a really long time, right?
Absolutely.
Now, to be expected. You can't, even though in the CFL it's usually pretty decent if you're able to keep your roster together, go on a long run, but eventually the I wouldn't even say it's not luck, because everything that they got they deserved. But
absolutely,
it's hard to sustain that because eventually the other teams figure it out.
Yeah, because if you're Calgary, I can actually, I'll do my impression of the Calgary fans. We're in.
Mm-hmm.
When other years it's we're in.
Exactly.
Yeah, so they're really. Hey, listen, they're on house money now. Let's be real here. They're on house money now. They shouldn't be in the playoffs, and by that I mean they could have not been in the playoffs, which in turn is close to being not in the playoffs. And therefore, there's no reason for them to think that they can beat the opponent they're about to meet this week, namely the BC Lions, because they barely squeaked in. What a great position to be in. Come on. I mean, if you're the Calgary fans, don't be silly. This is a great position to be in. You're not supposed to win. Yep. And now you got the BC fans going, wait a second. Calgary? Well, we should beat them, right? We can beat them, right?
Everything right now for Calgary and the fan base, it's gravy, right?
Totally.
If you asked them a month ago, do they expect to be in the playoffs? I didn't expect them to be in the playoffs.
It's
But
ironic, though. It's ironic, David.
it
It's
is
all
very
gravy,
ironic.
but they had a turkey of a season.
They did. I can't remember the last time. Like we've had teams, go 7 and actually not even 7-0.
11.
Like you would see teams maybe 8
6
and
and
10.
12. Was Ottawa's, what was it? Ottawa 8 and 10, 7 and 11, or 6? They weren't 6 and 12 when they won the Grey Cup. They were pretty close to that, though. I don't remember them being
In
very successful.
2016, Ottawa was 8 and 9,
There you go.
right?
8, 9, and 1.
I think so.
If it was that, because it would have been 18 games, right?
Right. I think there was a tie in there
Yes.
somewhere.
Yeah, they tied Calgary.
But but this is the point, right? Like you don't see teams with that type of record get into the playoffs, let alone even going on a run, right?
Absolutely. What are they doing in the playoffs?
No, I'm wrong. 2015, BC had a 7-11 record. Right? I mean, obviously they didn't exactly go far in the playoffs. I think they got demolished by Calgary in that first
round.
In the first round there in the East semifinal, but that fact remains. Calgary can be happy they get into the playoffs. They feel that way. You still can't look at this as a great position for the Stampeders, just because as much as you want to be the team that gets a really good jump on things late in the season, get with some momentum, there's something to be said if you're able to sustain a pace of play, your style of play for a whole season like BC, for the most part, has.
Calgary has not played really good football over the season. They played pretty good towards the end of the year. How do you scout that team? If you're BC, how do you scout the team? You didn't have the last game to scout them. You're pretty much self-scouting. You're not even scouting the other team. You're scouting yourself. So this is an organization, and I'm dying to see this game because BC has been an inconsistent team this year. They're ripe for the picking. If they play the way they played a couple of games this season, Calgary fans are going to say, "Bring on Winnipeg." But if British Columbia Lions, their quarterback Vernon Adams, has a good game, if he has a game where I really think they got to get on a good start. If they don't start well at home and Calgary, quiets the team a little bit, Calgary could gain a lot of confidence if they can quiet that crowd for lots of reasons. Because of the visiting team, if it's quieter, they can communicate better, all that wonderful stuff that football teams and quarterbacks like to do. It's going to be interesting. A quick start by Calgary could go a long way.
I think so. No, I definitely do think so. The big one here for me is, the start obviously will be important, but we have also seen BC down in games and find ways to win it too. And really, if you're looking at Calgary, looking at how they played all season, the games they've won, for the most part, it's been the running game that's kind of led the charge. And if you're trying to give any reason to think you have a chance against BC, it's look at some of the losses they've had where they're trailing. Vernon Adams feels like he has to play a little bit of a hero ball, and turnovers lead to more points for the other team. I think back to that loss against Toronto where, two undefeated. I think they were both undefeated at that point. Vernon Adams looked like an early favorite or among the favorites for MOP, and he threw a bunch of picks because he tried to, because the Argos were putting up a lead. He was trying to stop the bleeding, and unfortunately, it hemorrhaged. And I think if you're Calgary, that's got to be the thing. You got to attack Vernon Adams because we also know
absolutely
how healthy is he.
Right? It's the health, and also as far as mentally speaking, he's a great leader. But my goodness, if he doubts himself for a second, you can get him on a negative roll. And that's what Calgary has to do. They have to take away Vernon Adams' confidence. And if they do that, Vernon Adams has had a history of getting on a bad roll. And, it could be trouble for BC. Now, for Calgary to do that, David, what do you think they have to do? Is it like, I don't know, intercept the ball, force him to go to the run game, um, tackle him a lot, emphasize the fact that he's injured, make it worse, get him dirty, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and that's something you have to keep they have to keep that in mind, right? I'm sure. I mean, I haven't had a good chance to see how Vernon's been doing going into this game, but something would tell me that they're not running the risk of putting him in a situation he's not ready for. I haven't seen anything to tell me otherwise, so it's
Well, I'm looking at the CFL page, and
well, he's not.
I
He didn't
don't
have he didn't have an injury designation.
right.
The only people that didn't practice was LaFrance and Edwards Cooper.
Yeah,
So
that's
for BC,
they're
offensively,
healthy
they're pretty healthy. Yeah, Calgary, they're looking pretty okay themselves. Like,
compared to how they've been this year. They're very healthy. In other
yeah,
words, if they have a couple of injuries, that's not bad.
no, exactly right. They haven't really had to deal with that.
Yeah, you've got to like this game just because you've got two teams, and I really believe Calgary, and I think the mayor has reelected himself as the mayor of Calgary,
Yeah,
and I'm referring to Meyer. He has done he has looked good, David. He has looked good on his long passes. His throwing has been very crisp. He has made big plays. And to underline that, because this is the important issue, his players tended to have some dropsies issues. They've eliminated that for the most part. And if your receivers don't drop the ball, these are professional quarterbacks. I mean, if you don't drop the ball, you're gonna get a reception. We've seen teams that have trouble catching the ball, and we've seen teams that don't. And the quarterbacks get credit or blame depending how that goes.
yeah.
We'll see how that goes with these teams.
Well, the one thing we know that these teams will need to worry about is the weather,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
Because that's something that you have to always keep in mind. You see that the snow is already happening in the western part of
It
Canada.
happened. It happened here last night. We had snow. We had snow and ice. A
I've
friend
had
of
nothing
mine,
so far. Don't
friend of
push hard.
mine, Al, I hope you're feeling well, rolled his car 2 to 3 times yesterday. He couldn't tell it was 2 or 3 times in the
Yeah.
hospital till 4 o'clock in the morning. He told me after he called a cab, would I have gone to go pick him up? Probably, if he needed me to. But
Yeah,
yeah, it's not, the weather's not been pleasant.
Yeah, that's the one thing I always get worried about. Doing when you have your games this time of the year, open air stadium minus only one stadium, right? Can host a game like this. So yeah, it's gonna be something to keep an eye on, more so for the Winnipeg West final.
Yeah, because that could be windy and cold. That'll be crisp.
Toronto's been fortunate. Obviously, I'm gonna say this, and it's gonna probably
You're ruining it. Don't say it
yeah.
never rained at BMO. Don't say that. Oh, wait, I just said it.
Yeah,
Wait, I didn't
I
say it.
didn't want
I
to
was
say
saying not to say it.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost rained a couple of times. It actually started to rain and then said, oh, wait, this is BMO. We can't do that. Argos are playing.
Yeah. So
The whole time they've been at BMO, it's never rained for a game. It's only did a little bit and then stopped.
it
But it's never
snowed.
rained.
It snowed a little bit for the East Final 2017, I think. But yeah,
Yeah.
Toronto has been so fortunate. I always say
Otherwise,
weather-wise, they've had little to no issues. Of course, knock on wood, it doesn't happen for the East Final, but can't guarantee that.
come in. Good luck, please. Thank you. You know, My dogs think somebody's knocking at the door. They're going nuts. Um, yeah, so I like that game. I think that game's going to be interesting. I'm telling you, folks, if you're going to watch the Calgary BC game, get there early, be ready for the national anthem, because I really suspect control of that game will have a lot to do with how quick a team starts in that game. But it's the Canadian Football League, so you know what they say: no lead is safe. So and we have the 3-minute warning, and there's a lot that can happen. You can watch a full length movie during a 3-minute warning after a 3-minute warning in the Canadian Football League.
Yeah, no, for sure.
All right, let's move over to. We'll talk about the Argos at the end. Let's talk about the other game, and it's Hamilton and Montreal. Montreal won. Montreal finished way ahead of Hamilton. Montreal finished with a record that was consistent with the lead that they had over Hamilton around midway through the season. They just basically kept that lead. Hamilton had difficulty, chipping away at that lead that Montreal had. I like this game too, and this is a game that once again, either team can win.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I'm having a hard time right now, really giving myself, who has the edge right now in the Eastern semifinal. Just because, like, it's tough to gauge both teams right now, in my opinion. Like, Montreal's been pretty good, and they had their, they had their tough part of the season, and they got back and they cemented themselves, as a number 2. And then Hamilton's had some pretty impressive performances in the season, but it's also like they've come against some teams that haven't really had much to play for, right? So it's tough to really gauge all of that. But like there's areas where there's clearly, mismatch, in certain areas, but I think both teams have like their strengths and weaknesses. I just don't know who's going to step up really in this sort of game, right? Is it going to be the experience of Hamilton, or is it going
Depending
to
who's at
be
under center, right? It'll be Mitchell under center.
both? Will be under center. Apparently, they're going to play both guys. So I'm very curious to see how they pull that one together, right? Because you can't have two guys. You can go with both guys for sure. It's just not an ideal situation.
They've actually kind of worked their way into that position. I think the key is going to be for Hamilton. It's going to be ball security. It's turnovers. Hamilton wins this game if they can minimize the turnovers. Bo Levi Mitchell, the new Bo Levi Mitchell, the one that came to Hamilton, had a problem with interceptions. Ball security was an issue. Hamilton as a team, other quarterbacks as well, every other quarterback they have, all three of them, ball security has been an issue. Hamilton really needs to protect the ball if they want to beat Montreal, because Montreal defensively will do a good job of, I think they'll be controlling the line, and Hamilton can't make any mistakes. So essentially, the positives that Bo Levi Mitchell brings, and Schultz, I guess, when he's in there, as far as you're reporting, the same thing. They can't throw interceptions, and if they don't, Hamilton's looked pretty good on offense. They've got some guys there, some young guys, new look guys that are really doing a great job. And I think if those young players play the way they've played this season, Hamilton has the ability to beat Montreal. But again, I keep saying, because I think it's the most important function in this game, Hamilton has to protect the ball.
They do. They have to protect the ball, and they gotta also play aggressively on defense.
Yes,
right? Against this Montreal offense is nothing to sneeze at. There's some all-star matchups here, right? You got Austin Mack for Montreal. Hamilton's got Tim White, But I do think that Montreal has those other weapons, because what Montreal can do is we're going to try to take Tim White and James Butler away, beat us with the other guys.
Yeah, and then they've got Steinbeck who has
Yeah,
played.
and I
Steinbeck has played.
and I do think Montreal has the better offensive line. Yeah, I think you look at the experience that Hamilton has. I know that most would probably give them the edge with their defensive line, especially when you got Mr. Grey Cup, Jagger David there. But I also just think you also have a Montreal team that picked up Sean Lemon, and he
He's terrorized quarterbacks since he
yeah,
got.
especially I think Hamilton too. Like
Mm-hmm.
one game he played against them, right? So that experience I think plays a factor too. So I do think that this is going to be a very intriguing matchup. I think there's a lot of similarities in terms of these two teams and how they're kind of constructed a little bit here on the defensive side. Offense, yeah, can Cody Fajardo do it in the big game, right? That's a factor, right? He's played well, he's had his moments, but now can he do it with the pressure on him too?
Yes, took the word right out of my mouth, because that's what Hamilton has to do. They're going to have to pressure Cody Fajardo, because that's the way you beat him. And if they can get to him and physically introduce themselves to him, impolitely, of course. Cody Fajardo has had a history of injuries. I'm not saying he's injured now, but it is one of those things. Football's a mean sport, and the meanness aspect of the Hamilton Tiger Cats has to be focused on their opposing quarterback. And to be fair, the same is true for Montreal, because both the quarterbacks, regardless of which one's under center or whether they're taking turns or not, have had a history of not liking being hit.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So that's going to be a key with these two teams, is getting to the quarterback.
Oh yeah, of course. I don't think I think when you're trying to figure out what's going to be a factor in this game, I'm also going to wonder which team is going to try to establish a run game. Right?
They both have to. Tim White has proven a lot. Steinbeck has come into this season. He came in with this new physique, more power and stuff. It seems to me, that he might have shed a little bit of that, and he's gone back a little bit to less weight and more, the opposite. I'm sorry, go to more weight and be more of a bull. He was trying to do the running back, fleet of foot running back. He's a bull. That's who he is, and he works very well that way.
Well, and I think with James Butler for Hamilton, he's the perfect check down guy that's going to, give you that safety net, right? Bo Levi Mitchell, the problem we know that he's had is trying to force things, right? Trying to force plays. Now he should be able to trust that James Butler can be the safety valve for him. And if you do the checkdowns enough, maybe something down the field will open up, right? But I think where Hamilton's hoping the advantage comes is, okay, if we decide Bo Levi Mitchell's not doing it for us, we go to Matthew Schultz. Or if Matthew Schultz not doing it for us, we go to Bo Levi Mitchell. Question is, can both of them, which one will be finally the one to get the job done?
Well, I believe that Bo Levi Mitchell, I'm going to say that this is probably the healthiest he has been in the past few years at this time in the season.
If he is that healthy, right? We don't know if he's still dealing with anything. We know that he's obviously been back. He's played a few games, but let's see if he's actually back to being healthy.
Well, they've eased him in, right? He's not played many games this season, and they've eased him in, a quarter, a half, 3 quarters. I don't think they never had him play a full game since he's been back. I don't think he ever played a full game.
I don't think so either.
He played the 3 quarters, and then
he's played like a half,
a quarter, a half, and then 3 quarters.
Yeah, I don't think he's played a full game since he's been back.
They had him on a progression. They had him on working up, and that's fine. He's a veteran. Not that veterans, I understand that veterans take longer to get going, because when they recover from an injury to get going again takes them a little longer than it would be a young player. But I think he's had plenty of time to get going, and he's going to be at his best what is his best? Well, we're going to find out. Is his best going to be the guy that he was before Calgary decided to not use him anymore and put Meyer in? Is he going to be the guy that the reason why Calgary let him go? Which quarterback are they getting? And they're putting no pressure on him. I like what Hamilton's doing. If it's Scott Milanovic that's doing it or the head coach, it doesn't matter to me. They're not putting a lot of pressure on him. That's what I'm feeling. And I think it's a good idea not to put pressure on him, in my opinion. And they're letting him play the way he's going to play. Whatever it looks like, whatever he does is going to be what he can do. And I like that idea for him because there are so many questions.
Oh, of course. And I know we don't take into account the Orlando Steinauer factor, right? I think he's probably out of all the coaches, he probably has the most pressure.
Oh,
anyone.
Big time.
He's also had quite a bit of experience over the guy on the other side. I know Jason Moss has been there before. Steinauer has been around he's been at this a while too. Maybe would you consider them both equal in terms of their experience, Moss and Orlando Steinauer? I figure Steinauer might have a little bit of an edge here because he's been doing this for so long with this team. Moss doesn't really know. This is still a kind
They
of.
were together in Toronto.
They were together in Toronto. Moss, I know he had
Moss
the head
had
coach.
didn't. Yeah. I think you're right. They were together in Toronto, and Steinauer went to Hamilton, and he was
around. He was an
associate
coach.
He wasn't even a coach. He was like in the background, it seemed, if I remember correctly. He had a very subtle role. And then you had Moss go to Montreal, and he was coaching the quarterbacks. They're kind of on the same. But I would kind of agree with you that Orlando Steinauer, I think he has like maybe a year's more experience of a leadership role. So I would give him the edge in experience.
Yeah, so I wonder how much of that plays a factor too, right? Jason Moss, we know that he's gone there with Trevor Harris when they were in Edmonton together, but he hasn't gone there with Cody Fajardo, right? They haven't had that success together. At least with Steinauer, they can say we've been to multiple Grey Cups. Yeah, sure, a lot of the parts have changed with this group, but the culture and the identity is still kind of there for them.
Does he understand? To your point, I'll add to your point. He has the advantage of understanding how close he has been to the Grey Cup, and understands personally the kind of pressure involved in being in a Grey Cup, especially in Hamilton. He has a lot of experience in that.
No, for sure. And sometimes all that experience might not be great experience.
That's why I'm kind of smiling, because is it positive or is it negative? Or is it a wash? One thing's for sure, though. These two coaches know each other. They've spent a lot of time together. They both have had success and failure almost simultaneously on a dime. They've had both. And now you've got I have to say, in Montreal the team has improved, but it was trending as an improving team, right? Hamilton, on the other hand, was going the other direction. So Orlando Steinauer has had a more interesting season, and they placed a coach on the team that was a head coach that won a Grey Cup. Can anyone say footsteps? Can you hear them? Like, there was a lot of pressure on him because there's a guy ready. They got a guy that, see you later. I mean, he is the vice president. He could fire himself and then put Milanovic in.
That's what I was going to say. The saving grace for Steinauer is he could kind of go to ownership and say, look, you know what? I can't do both. Why don't I hand one role off to save him? I'm not saying he's doing it to save himself, but you know what? At some point,
reality has to.
If let's say Hamilton, like, we know the pressure on Hamilton this year. It's in your building once again. right? You got a second chance. A lot of teams don't get this chance again to host this long
Not
after,
with the
right?
way they started their season.
So they were given a bit, they were fortunate that Ottawa had their season blow up on them. You're fortunate that nobody in the West was good enough to really step up and be a crossover factor.
Yep.
So if you're Hamilton, you're like, okay, we get that chance, but if we don't make good on it, something has to change. Like I know they this year they went and they changed the quarterbacks.
What are you saying? It'll be Calgary Hamilton in the Grey Cup because they're both living on borrowed. They're on house money, both of them.
There's a little bit of that, but the road is not easy for either one.
Well,
Either one have the toughest road ahead of them, right? They don't have
is
the home.
Toronto the best team since 89 is the question. How vulnerable are they? How vulnerable is Montreal to Hamilton? I really, I'm giving the nod to Montreal because there are so many ways they can beat you, and now all of a sudden they've got a kick returner on their team that's doing good stuff too. So the special teams, we know how good Montreal can be on defense and are. We know that they've got a pretty good, solid running game and an offense that really can play well. And now their special teams is starting to round into form. The three phases in Montreal, I think I give them an edge when you add up. If you were to assign points to each phase, I give Montreal I give them the nod for that as far as the best in the three phase program of a football team.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I would probably agree with that.
So I guess you want to call it. I'm going to say in the West, I have a hard time not betting on BC. I think BC can beat Calgary, and I'm picking Montreal over Hamilton. And my Hamilton friends will hate me, but I just like what Montreal's done. They've been a very consistently good team this year, more than Hamilton.
I think,
and they've won when they could. Where Hamilton has lost some games at the end that that loses faith for me in being able to win a big game like this.
the big one for me here is it should be Montreal and it should be BC. I'm more convinced BC can win this, no issues. I think having the home field will be big for them. I think they're going to come out with their best foot forward. Montreal, the only thing that concerns me is they did slide a little bit during the regular season. Fajardo wasn't looking great, and that's something you have to be worried about. But Hamilton is not squeaky clean. And we know what was the issue with Bo Levi Mitchell during the year. And it wasn't just injuries, poor decision making, trying to force things that weren't there. So if you are Montreal, you have to establish your dominance as much as possible right off the get-go. Because if you give Hamilton just a little opening, okay, they'll bust it wide open. This is the way I kind of see it going.
Absolutely.
So, question now, Frank.
Yes.
The CFL posted that tickets are available for the CFL awards.
Yeah.
Wants to go.
I was trying to look at the list and I'm having trouble picking it up.
So one thing they're doing that I didn't know they did, I don't know if it's new. You can speak to this more than me because you've obviously been to way more of these than I have. I didn't go to the awards last time they were in Hamilton. I wasn't able to go.
Right.
They are offering, because you know where the awards are this year. It's not in Hamilton. It's in Niagara Falls.
Oh.
At the new
First Ontario Place?
So
Center?
no, it's actually going to be at the theater at the Niagara Falls U Casino.
Oh.
Right? A pretty nice venue.
Yeah.
They're offering a free shuttle to and from downtown Hamilton
Uh-huh.
to the Falls View Casino. Is that a first? Have they done this before in other?
It's always, well, I haven't gone. I don't remember it being anywhere other than the home venue.
Like, have you had the? Like, I'm because the other issue
Never
I
had the
have with
shuttle.
the other thing I'm having issue is the prices of the tickets are a little pricey.
For the
I can
awards.
understand you're not going to give away tickets, but a floor seat is $195 to go to the CFL awards. The awards. The first off, I'm going to say that the CFL awards are not sold out. I just don't know where I can understand it's a prestige event. There's not a lot of seats available, so maybe supply and demand is a thing. But people are spending a lot of money to fly in, right, across the country, across the province, even taking a train ticket. Got to get a hotel for the week in Hamilton if you're expecting fans to be there all week. Then you're going to charge almost $200 for a floor seat. And guess what? The balcony seat, $171. This is this is the issue I have with things like when people tell me, oh, why aren't more people following the CFL? Well, the issue is the awards are not even televised. You have to do a live stream for them. I don't know if they're going to be televised this year. I didn't say anything definitive about that. But explain to me how you think it makes sense for this league to charge fans that much.
I don't know that what's going to happen at the awards. Shaggy's going to be the guy playing there. For anybody who knows who Shaggy is, so I think it's going to be a bigger deal this year than I think it's been. I don't remember them ever having a band playing anything there. So they're saying that I just was looking here that Shaggy's going to be part of the awards ceremony. Is a Grammy Award winner, for those that don't know. So I guess I'm when it comes to how much it costs, because I'm part of the media and I'm invited there, I've never really given any thought to how much it costs, David. So I hate to sound sheepish, but I really am. $195 for an awards ceremony for a game that charges $35, $40 for a ticket to go watch the game. It does seem kind of unbalanced.
Well, Grey Cup tickets, I haven't even looked to see how much the limited tickets left are costing right now.
So like just under $200, around $200, top and bottom, I suppose.
Well, I'm looking right now. Give me 2 seconds here.
So I'll read this. The 6 team award winners for each Canadian team. Club are advancing in the next stage of voting to determine the divisional finalists for the CFL awards.
Lowest ticket price for the Grey Cup right now is $321.
There you go. It's even way over $200.
The best seat will cost you. This is a resale. Hold on. I don't look at resale. I have to look at the standard price. $621.
Tickets are very expensive this year. I think they were like $400 last year. And the last time I bought tickets to a Grey Cup was in 2012.
And look, I totally get it that fans wait until they know which team is playing. Because why are you going to go out and spend all that money on a ticket when you don't even know who's playing? It's for the most part, it's not like a whole block, a whole huge section of it is not sold. I'm assuming they'll be sold because fans will want to see their teams. Like, let's say Winnipeg against in it, they're always good. So yeah, I'm just when people tell me why are certain leagues and certain teams having a trouble getting people into the building, I say, how much do tickets cost? How much does it cost? Oh, but the experience, the atmosphere is great. How much does it cost for that experience and atmosphere?
Well, it's like 28,000 people that are willing to pay $400 for a ticket, $600 for a ticket.
But you know what?
Um,
The thing is, Frank, last year the Grey Cup didn't sell out.
well, absolutely, it didn't.
Good thing if you're I don't know, I haven't looked yet at Montreal to see how their seats are selling. I know
They
that
travel. Montreal fans are pretty good. They travel pretty good. They
well,
travel.
but it's not even just for the Grey Cup. I'm talking about for the actual game on the semifinal.
I think they'll sell out or come close.
Well, I know they blanketed off part of that stadium because it's really hard right now to expect to sell it all, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But right now, first off, I can't even seem to find tickets or where you go and buy tickets. Ah,
Uh,
they make it so damn difficult.
well, we
Also,
can talk about that next week when you have a little more time. Let's take the last couple of minutes just to. Last week you wanted to talk about the All Stars, the most outstanding player and that stuff.
yeah. So I did get to vote for this year. I got to vote for the obviously I was asked to do Toronto, which that was the only ones I had. The only one I had to struggle with was Defensive Player of the Year for the Argos. Part of me wanted to say Win McManus deserved it because I think he's made really game changing plays and things like that. His absence from the lineup is notable, but Darius Pick
Pickett was a good pick.
has had a really good year as well,
Pickett's had a good year.
right? And actually, Ryan Dinwiddie said probably one of the best at his position, at least in the East. I mean, you can argue in the CFL too. So I did submit my vote on Sunday for in time for Sunday for the East, and I try very hard not to be biased. Right? You can't be biased. You're given a
Well,
vote.
you're
You
doing the
have to
Toronto
be
team.
right. Chad Kelly, no doubt, MOP. He was my pick. I actually for Canadian, I did Dequoy. I thought Dequoy was, he's probably one of the better Canadian defensive players in the league, at least in the East. You can argue other guys, but I think all year he's been so crucial for crucial for Montreal in that regard. Javon Leake, no doubt for special teams. I think he should get the East nod. I don't know anyone on other teams that deserve it. And then really the tough one too is going with linemen. I went with John Allen. I think the Argos offensive line has been one of the better ones in the league, and he was the nominee for Toronto. This was a very tough year to vote. But the one here I'm really curious about in the West is you have Oliveira getting over
Yeah,
Toronto.
that would have been my pick, like I told you last week.
Yeah. But now, Brady Oliveira, if he were to be the nominee for MOP in the West, which part of me believes he should be, but I think some people are going to also look at quarterback with Vernon Adams. Vernon Adams. But imagine Oliveira wins MOP, but he doesn't win most outstanding Canadian in the West because of Matthew Betts. What do you think about that?
Well, Matthew Betts is a record breaker. He's doing things no player's ever done. So that's kind of hard to you can't stiff arm him. Brady Oliveira, as far as I'm concerned, if you were to say to me that he's the guy coming out of the West, and to get out of the West he has to go over Adams, I think it's a slam dunk. He's been consistent all year. He's been an important function of a winning team all year. Vernon Adams has had some off games, so I definitely believe Brady Oliveira is going to be the guy that represents the West. And when we look here up against Chad Kelly, has Chad Kelly been as consistent as Brady Oliveira?
Is it fair to Chad Kelly that the team has put wins above personal stats?
And does the system the team play work against individual
Yeah.
or a quarterback. I think really the issue is, David, you and I both know, as far as Chad Kelly is concerned, he has had a really good defense to work with and a really good special teams to work with. He has had a couple of really good dance partners that have carried the lunch, have carried the lunch pail for the team on many occasions. I am not here trying to stiff arm Chad Kelly, but Chad Kelly has not been the reason the Argos went 16-2. He's a good reason for being a part of it, but he's not the reason the team is 16-2, in my opinion. He's still an inexperienced quarterback. We're seeing him, at the very beginning of his learning curve. This is his first season as a starter. He started his second game this year as a starter. Brady Oliveira is hitting his stride.
If Brady Oliveira ends up winning it, I think it'd be well deserved. I have to really look into everything, right, when I consider all the factors. But yeah, no, Brady Oliveira has had a season like no other for a Canadian, right? Almost. Did he reach the 2,000-yard mark?
Yeah, he's in John Cornish territory.
Yeah, and there's a reason why that Winnipeg team is so tough to beat, because you can shut down Zach Collaros, but then hey, there's Brady Oliveira right there for you.
The only way, even second and long, and handing him the ball is a good bet for Winnipeg.
Yeah, no, I think Brady Oliveira would definitely deserve it. I don't think there's any real reason why he shouldn't be that guy. Really, at the end of the year,
because he is that guy. Yeah. He's the guy you point to and say,
"Well, look
here's the ball, Brady."
Matt Collaros has had back-to-back MVPs, but the Winnipeg Reporter says no, it's Brady Oliveira this year.
Yeah, well, it is. I mean, if we're talking about consistency and literally being the difference between winning and losing as much as he has been, yeah, absolutely, he's the guy. We only got a couple of minutes left. What other one? Where do you want to go before we say goodbye?
Well, the Bombers added Markeith Anvils to the practice roster, so he gets potentially one last chance to try to be on. I mean, he was on the Argos last year, so he's got his Grey Cup, but maybe one last chance to see if he can show something. I mean, I think the Bombers are pretty stacked, so it'd be tough for him to get playing time. So that's something to keep an eye on a little bit there. And yeah, I mean,
the Argos brought in a guy to play their special teams, a linebacker.
Yeah, I mean, teams are just preparing for potential injuries to pop up right now.
Depth.
Yeah, adding as much
but
depth.
They're looking for experience depth at this point.
I'm going to bring up one thing here.
Be my guest.
One final thing. It was actually brought up by Dan Ralph of the Canadian Press, who brought up a potential candidate for the president of the Edmonton Elks Football Club. Does the name Neil Lumsden sound familiar to you?
Ex-Ottawa Rough Rider.
Former Edmonton fullback that won 3 Grey Cups with the team. He is currently the Ontario's Minister of Tourism, Culture, and Sport. So very interesting to see, how that maybe changes how things go in Edmonton. Because right now, Rick Lilleshire, I think that's how you say his name, is the interim president. Very interesting to see what happens in Edmonton. That's a situation to keep an eye on, because that's a team that needs to figure out their direction sooner rather than later.
Just noticed my camera was like this. I thought it was me. I kept trying to straighten out.
I didn't really
notice.
Camera
that was the wrong way.
Maybe I'm a little off too. Maybe that's why I hadn't noticed.
Yeah, possibly. I guess the last word from me, and then I'll give you the very, very last word. The last word for me is, folks, don't miss the football games that are this weekend. There's only 3 games left this year. No, 5, sorry.
Yeah, 5.
There's
only 2 this weekend, and it's on one day, and it's
there's only 2 this weekend. And and they're going to set up some really interesting situations. If you're not a fan of any of those teams and you're a fan of football, you're not going to miss it. If you are not a regular fan and you passed on this channel and saw us and wondering what the Canadian Football League's like, this is the weekend to find out.
Yeah, no, this is buckle up time. This is the time of the year where all the marbles play for all the marbles.
I like these games the most.
It's a real competitive games. We haven't had real competitive games in a really long time that meant a lot for teams, so that's good.
And we've got two games that offer the yips.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the two teams, there's two distinctive favorites and two distinctive underdogs, in my opinion.
Yes, I think
and
I agree with that.
Interesting football.
Of course.
Thanks for doing this, David.
No problem, Frank.
For David Morassutti, I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching CFL Talk, airing Mondays at 9 p.m. This was a special time for this show. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For CFL Talk, news, entertainment, and other sports programming we offer, please check out SpanglishWorld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. And don't forget Candid Frank Stanisci, 10:30 on YouTube. See you next time.